It's Veronica Tash. I'm here to discuss how DOGE has falsified millions of Social Security records already. First, we're gonna have to go into a little bit about Elon's claims regarding Social Security benefits. Not necessarily claims, even it's insinuations. You're supposed to draw the line that millions and millions of dead people are still drawing benefits and their descendants are illegally taking the money. And that just simply isn't the case. Where I want to start out is let's actually go straight to, yeah, we are looking at here's something that's available publicly. And this is where I got my this information from as far as trying to calculate exactly how much fraud there potentially could be at all. This is if you're looking at everybody at a certain level, just not being alive, like Elon said. And so there's a nice little site here on socialsecurity.gov, SSA.gov, right there. Number of Social Security beneficiaries, and this covers but at the end of December 2024. So this is right before Donald Trump takes office. And so we're going to, well, I'm just going to show you where it takes if we look at retired worker. But let me show you, here's all the different types of claims that there could be. Here is an example of what shows when you are actually looking at it. We have everybody listed based on their age, the number of people at that age, and the average amount of the benefits that they're getting. Got total men and women. We're only worried about the total here. And you can, of course, go here yourself. And this is just, you want to worry about everybody here. These are the ones who are in current pay. That means that they're actually being paid benefits, as opposed to people who may be suspended or anything like that. And so we're going to go away from there. And instead, let's look at Excel because I did the math here. Excel. All right. And so there's 4 different categories that you could look at. People who are retired, people who are spouses of somebody who's insured, a surviving parent. So this is somebody who is a parent who never worked substantially themselves or worked a lot less substantially than their child. Their child had been supporting them and their child passed away. It's a very rare type of benefit. And finally, we have widows and widowers, which are widows are female, widowers are male, and everything else is the same about them. I don't know why we have different word for them. We hear a widower, you're thinking that must be the dead person who created the widow, but no. A widower is a male widow. But these are the average amount of the payments. You can multiply it out. We have the total amount paid. I went through all the options that you potentially could have somebody who is 100 or older, that we have information. You potentially, I suppose, could have somebody 100 or older who is a disabled adult child. But if you go to child's benefits, all they list is ages 0 through 18 or 0 through 21, and then you have 22 plus, and that's the disabled adult children. And you're not getting the same information, even as it is. This is the people who are 99 or older. So it is not, it's not quite centenarians and older, but this is the best data I could get because this is the data that was available. I do not have access on Social Security systems to scrape, the data I would ideally want myself. Theoretically, I'd have to go through a bunch of different records, which would be a huge violation. And by the way, I should mention, I am a Social Security employee. And so it is, I do want to point, nothing I'm saying is necessarily the view of the Social Security Administration. And I am being very careful to not say anything that would violate the Hatch Act right now. But we're looking at all these numbers. If you add up all the retired people 99 and older, there's 89,106 of them. You multiply it by the average amount that they get paid, you end up with 158 million and some. Take the 388 spouses, and the reason why this number here is going to be so low comparatively is because you're 99 plus and you're married to someone else who worked and supported you, and they didn't die either. They're not necessarily 99 plus themselves, but they didn't die either. The vast majority of people who would have fallen in this category are going to be in the widow and widower category. Because at 99, chances are your spouse died. But they only get average $770. There's another 298,000, 299,000 actually rounds too. You get 90 people who are surviving parents. And if you looked at that, there's very, very few people who actually get this benefit. It's extremely rare one. But you're looking at $140,000. Finally, we have our widows and widowers. We got 31,000, 52.4 million dollars that they collect total per month, totaling $211 million, which to me and you, that's a whole lot of money. If I had $211 million, I would not have to be working at Social Security or worrying about YouTube at all. So YouTube hasn't gotten me any money. I've lost money with YouTube. And that's because I don't have enough viewers. So if you are watching this and you're enjoying it, do hit like and share, subscribe. Get me to that point where I may be able to collect money here. So we look at the total amount paid. And really, I should change these to there. Those are dollar amounts now. Every month, $123.8 billion goes out from Social Security. Whereas the people who are 99 or older, $211 million. So that's a total of 0.17%. So it's more than 1 in 1,000, but less than 1 in 500 people are getting, are 99 or older. So if we assume that nobody at all is 99 or older, they're all dead, we're looking at $211 million of improper payments and possible fraud each month. Now, that is not by any means something that is going to shock a system when you're talking about the Social Security Administration. We can just go right here. You want to look at D10, multiply that by 12. You're looking at almost $1.5 trillion would be paid out based on this number. 211 million a month is chump change chump change. Um, it's nothing of any significance. So when you have Elon Musk going on TV and at these rallies talking about all these dead people that Social Security has marked as alive, that are 150 years old and all that, they're not getting benefits. We only have um, total of, I have the total there? Let's get that right here. B4 colon B7. 120,736 people total that are listed as 99 or older. You may know one of them. But, so I tried to go here and I did try messing around before I realized the fundamental flaws in what I was doing. Here I was trying to figure out, well, here's the number of decreases. If we assume a decrease rate of this amount throughout, what would you end up with? And I then realized that the decreases aren't just simply deaths. It also would have to do with things such as the baby boom and all that. Because 70-year-olds would have been born in if you turn 70 today, you would have been born in 1955. And I started at 70 rather than a younger amount because people will keep claiming and wait up to a certain age. No one should ever wait past 70 based on the current law. So if you are 70 or older and you're waiting on your Social Security, go claim it right away because you get no extra money for waiting past that point. In 18 and a half years, I've come across 2 people who waited past that and threw that money away because we can only go back 6 months. But, for example, there's a whole lot more people who are at age 70, who were born in 1955 than were born in, say, the 1920s. And that's going to make a huge difference. So what I was working on here isn't going to work. I was trying to look at the birth rates a little bit. And then I'm like, what's the 2023 number? I don't know what the 2023 number is, to try to figure out how many people were of this age, to figure out, is there a reasonable amount of people? And it seems fairly reasonable. There may very well be some incorrect payments. The question is it worth the effort for the government to go out and find out? The Social Security Administration already has the Centenarian Project, which when you hit 100, basically you have to see somebody in person, whether they're coming to you, because there are people who will be assigned to go out to find people, especially people are bedridden in nursing homes, or you come to us, we see ID. Yes, this is the person. This is somebody who's alive. And though I spoke to people 100 or older, I've never done anything with the Centenarian Project myself. Where's what I'm looking for? I'm gonna ignore it. Oh, here it is. We also have the issue with age 115, which is often misstated. And I did get Sam Cedar of the Majority Report to stop saying it. He said, okay, I'll stop on Blue Sky. But that's because it doesn't automatically stop your benefits when you're 115. Because if you worked and you paid in and you're still alive, you're still due that money. So it doesn't stop just because you hit age 115. But what it does happen at age 115 is if you've been suspended for 7 or more years, or any point past 115, if you've been suspended for 15 or more years, they terminate the record. They don't mark you as dead because they don't know that, but they terminate the record. You would have to apply all over if you're getting it. 7 years is a long time. If you're not getting it, you're probably in some medically induced coma with people keeping you artificially alive. And somebody's going to get guardianship and be coming down and trying to figure out what's going on with the money at some point in there, most likely. But that's what happens at age 115. If you want to do more work, the question is it worth it? Does it make sense to spend the money to go out? And sometimes you go look at, for example, with food stamp or not food Medicaid, that they did in some states where they tried to drug test for it. They spent more money testing for whether or not you took drugs in the past, however many months it goes back, than they saved in the food stamps. Does it make sense to do such a program? Only if you really want to go after people really hard and you're willing to be punished to actually take a pain yourself to do it. We're not too worried that there's a whole bunch of people who are faking being over 100. So nobody has gone past, with what we have with the Centenarian Project to check 110, 120 or whatnot. Whatever the ages may be. There's, according to Social Security, very few people alive at those ages. I don't buy the claim that it's a default age, 150 years old, that they're talking about. I think it's somebody who was born approximately 150 years ago that's just not marked dead, but they're not getting benefits. And that's an important thing there. Because, Social Security, ever since the beginning, asked, what is your date of birth? They wanted to know what your date of birth. They can't leave it blank. And why can't they keep it blank? Because this is all for a benefit program. Your Social Security number wasn't used for credit purposes or the IRS or anything but Social Security before 1988. And that is a whole bunch of expense on the Social Security Administration that didn't used to be there. Whole lot of worry about Social Security cards, going through extra effort to make it harder to get Social Security card to prevent fraud. A lot more people trying to get it constantly because it's used for these things. But it wasn't used for anything but that. But that program, Social Security, originally was just retirement before 1950. But you have to reach a certain age before you can get that. So we are going to be very worried about what that age is. When you're getting, even before they really even ask for proof of your age, they're going to ask you, what is your age before you put anything in. I don't believe there were any default ages set. Unless, Musk shows or somebody else shows a breakdown that we have a huge glut of people who are exactly 150 years old. No, there's probably just really people who are 150 years old who aren't marked as dead. Or at least that record isn't marked as dead, because many people over the years have got more than one Social Security number. And I've seen this many, many times. Especially you're talking about people who are older. And before things were really computerized, for example, I saw somebody recently who got their first Social Security card on one record because I had to look up their number for a claim. And this person wasn't there, but I had to see if there's benefits for the spouse under there. They had one record where they got November of a year, one Social Security number. They got a different Social Security number in December of that same year. And it seems that they just did everything on the second Social Security number. The first one didn't arrive and just duplicated. There has been cases where people have, of course, worked under one number and collected benefits like SSI under the other. I've seen where they've been, found guilty of that and all that. And that sort of thing does happen from time to time. But people did get multiple numbers. Now, let's say somebody is 150 years old and they got two Social Security numbers, maybe even have three. At that point, you're going to, let's say they die, it gets reported for one social security number. We're not aware that they have multiple social security numbers. Those other two may be sitting there as still alive, because why are you going to bother reporting it? Nobody knows that's their social security number. They probably never used it. That's more often than not the case when people have multiple social security numbers. Of course, I've also seen where we ended up having two people with the same social security number because they were two people with very similar name or very common names, but the exact same name, but they is a very common name. It's something like Michael Smith. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's like very common. They were born in New York City on the same day. That sort of thing can happen if you got a really popular name. And I saw where, they keep switching back and forth. You see completely different parents, but it was going back and forth between them. That is something I saw back when I worked at the teleservice center. Um, Stuff like that. You have some issues with records sometimes, but you try your best to keep everything on the up and up. But there's going to be a whole bunch of people who aren't reported quite right. And we're about to go into a bit as to why. And this is going to be information that is not public. But I'm making it public. This is why you clicked on this video. Because this is what DOGE falsified. And I did share this with the majority report. I don't think they covered it at all. They definitely didn't reply to my email. And I sent that from my work email too. Because I don't really give a shit if the administration knows what I'm doing, because I want them to know that they're being opposed. Mind you, Donald Trump is not eligible to run for president if he talks about a third term. So it does not violate the Hatch Act for me to talk shit about him. And he can't even constitutionally be president right now. He's not the president as far as I'm concerned. Last time we had a president was January 20th, and that's because Article 14, Amendment 14, Section 3 of the Constitution says that Donald Trump is not eligible to be president. And so he is not president. We just keep pretending he is for some reason. Oh, I know the reason, but let's go on. We want to look at, boom. Yeah. All right, that's weird because the way it was, you saw how a small was duplicating my view. Right very close to one another to try to figure out which one was my actual mouse. So I guess it didn't really matter in the end because it would be clicking on one or the other. But here's an email we got. Deaths posted to Numident records via automated systems run. This is DOGE falsifying documents. This came March 18th. I blacked out people's names and contact information. We previously informed you about the Office Public Service and Operations Supports, OPSOS, initiative of automating death postings to Numident records. Mind you, this was not something that I got. I think management saw this. OPSOS has alerted us that 2 additional systems input occurred March 16th, 2025. Posting and date of death to records that did not have any current. MBR refers to the master beneficiary record. That's what when we look at Social Security benefits, or SSR. That's for SSI involvement. Notice they did not have a current involvement. That means they were not getting any benefits. None of these people got benefits. And that's very important to pay attention to. None of these people got benefits. To increase accuracy of information on our records, the first input included 2.5 million records and can be identified by the death certificate number, blah, blah, blah. See 3/16/2025 at the end. On the Numidan, the second input included 10,000 records and can be identified by the death certificate number, somehow slightly different on the Numidan. Please let us know if anything was done in error. Questions may be directed to redacted. I redacted that. An RSI, Retirement and Survivors Insurance Specialist in the Center for Disability Integrity and Program Support at blank. So I did contact them. Let's go here. I'm on 4, 3, 2. I had to go back and redact something. I realized oh crap. Okay, so this is more of the same thing. Here's another 949,922. So almost another million on March 9th. That was the first run. Number 3, we want to make you aware, blah, blah, blah. 100 records they did before that. This was March 4th. Mind you, none of these people were getting any benefits. These are people who are just marked as dead, deceased. And by all means, they probably were all deceased, because if you're 100 plus still not getting benefits, you're probably deceased, whether you're insured or not. And so that's not the issue. But there are other issues. And you can see the bottom part here. Here's me contacting redacted, who is listed in the email, who would not be redacted if I thought that they were actually behind this still. The way that it was written originally, I thought they had something directly to do with it. And we did have a whole bunch of upper management resign. This is somebody who did not resign, which more likely than not could make it somebody who is willing to work very closely with DOGE and all that. But this doesn't seem to be the case with this particular person after I heard back. I asked what parameters were used on the second and third runs. What was input for the deaths? The death date. Is there a plan to change the administrative finality rules for this? Because after, for 1 year, we can reopen decisions such as you died on this day for any reason. Within 4 years, we can do it for new and material information. So we need information that we did not have before that shows it. Anything over 4 years requires that somebody is, for example, we assume somebody was dead, somebody, for example, age 115, they show up alive, we can undo the decision in that case. We can undo a decision if it was a clerical error, for example, and it's to the benefit of the beneficiary. We're not going to go back, we made a clerical error 30 years ago. We're going to take it yours $15,000 or anything like that. It has to be in your favor. It's weird things like that, and it's very rare. This would not seem to fit there, especially because if they're already dead. And I go out and I list the problems with this. I said, it strikes me there's multiple issues. First, it violates the Federal Records Act by falsifying data. We neither actually know these individuals are dead nor when they died. Rather than inputting something saying they are presumed dead, we are stating they are dead. This is why OIG had estimated it would cost millions of dollars to correct this, which is why they didn't do it. It's not worth the millions of dollars to go through it. We would have to hunt for and obtain verifications of their deaths from the states and then input those deaths. That's the appropriate way to do it. That is not what was done. The law was broken here blatantly with foreknowledge because Leland Dudek is a criminal who was made acting commissioner specifically because of the crimes he was committing at the time and being investigated for. He was giving DOGE access to your information illegally. It violated the Privacy Act of 1974. End of story. Number 2, anyone we just said was dead but is not is going to be harmed in multiple ways. Their bank accounts will be closed, they may be terminated from other programs, and their privacy rights will be violated as their names, dates of birth, and social security numbers will become publicly available through the Social Security Death Index. Yeah, you can go, if you go to one of those sites that paid for access to the Social Security Death Index, because it's not available for free for whatever reason, you can look through and, one of those ancestry sites, and you can find the Social Security numbers of people who died. They're dead. They have no privacy rights anymore once they're dead, so they can share that. But these people may still have privacy rights because they may not be dead. The vast majority are, I'm sure 99.9% of them are dead. I'm also sure that in basically 3.5 million cases, you have 100, 200 that may actually be living for whatever reason, and they did just have their rights violated by the U.S. government from this. Number 3, there are claims issues involved, and this is something that you get from dealing with the program for, well, I'm going to say decades, even if it's not quite that second decade yet. But this is why you don't have someone like Elon Musk go through all this, making snap decisions. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I know what I'm doing, and that's because I have dealt with this for 18 and a half years. Let's say a 58-year-old man died in 1993. Since he wasn't getting any benefits from us, no one reported it. Hey, why do I have to bother? I just buried my husband. I don't want to deal with that. 9 months earlier, he married an 18-year-old girl, because that does happen, and I have seen it. I've seen much older people than that marrying 18-year-old girls. She comes in to file for widow's benefits in 2042 when she obtains age 60. We are then using an incorrect number for the base years for him when calculating her benefits. And since it's been more than 4 years since we made the decision that he died on whichever incorrect date was input, we cannot reopen the decision that he died then when she brings in his death certificate, which would be new and material information. We then underpay her because we're using too many years. We treated like this man got all the way to his full retirement age and beyond before we marked him as deceased. And we're using the top 35 years when we should be using fewer because he died before he was 62. Should be 4 years. It should be like top 31 years. Is what we should be using. You could also have a child who is on SSI and has been since he was 17. When I'm saying child, I mean the child of somebody like that. During a redetermination, that's what RZ stands for. Don't ask why. This is because of our system being really old and crappy. When he's 46 years old, so almost 30 years later, an SSI representative may realize that both of his parents were deceased or disabled when his grandfather died when he was 19, which is a sign that you're not going to find easily, especially because even though we ask what on that very first application, what are the parents' social security numbers, unless you ask to see the actual record, you don't have access to that. So if I'm going interviewing people, I don't know what their parents' social security numbers are. They have to give it to me, or they have to give me their names and dates of birth. I have to look it up. And once again, with those common names, okay, so which state were they born in? To try to narrow it down. Do we get the right one? Is this the right? What were your grandparents' names and so on? But this comes up as a random thing. So now they have to file. Because with SSI, it's a welfare-based benefit. So if you're eligible for any other kind of benefit, you're required to file for it or you lose your SSI. So they realize in this case, hey, you're 47 years old, but you should be filing for this benefit. So now he must file for disabled adult child benefits off his grandpa's record. And brings in his death certificate. Oh wait. And once again, we're using incorrect number of base years and underpaying this disabled adult child. We still cannot reopen the decision and for new and material information after 4 years. Because this grandpa's been dead for like 27 years. And we just decided, boom, we're gonna, just say this is when they died. It creates that problem that we made a administrative decision of that death, even though the point when their death becomes a material fact, when it's going to make a difference, doesn't happen 2 years later. And then we can't reopen that decision that we made randomly, that we said, oh, they died on March 16th, 2025, because we just want to input a date. That's why you have to actually find the proof that they died and when they died, because it makes a difference. And it's going to cause, when you have 3.5 million people, there are definitely people that's going to happen to. One of those two situations, or a very similar situation to that. There are people that Social Security is going to underpay. So, am I crazy? Let's find out if I'm crazy, because we can look at the very top. Hi, Veronica. Thank you for the inquiry. You raised some very valid concerns. So this expert working at the regional office, or I don't even know where they're working now because they closed that regional office. Maybe they moved to Kansas City. I will pass this along to Opsos. That's who did it. So, and see if they can provide clarification. The message that I received did not provide the parameters that were used in the second and third runs. That's how I know he had nothing to do with the actual application. Though I did just say it's a he. I can say the date of death being input matches the run date. So that they put March 16th, March 9th, whatever the date that they ran it, they died today. If I receive any additional information, I'll pass it along. Well, that was March 19th. I have not heard anything back. So Opsos isn't saying anything. They know what happened was wrong. And they're just going to ignore it. This is essentially what we're looking at. So, and we know based on what's going on there, yes, DOGE is ultimately who's going to have been responsible for that. That's what Elon Musk was going on and on about. All these people who are dead, receiving Social Security benefits. Well, we didn't say they're receiving Social Security. All these people are dead on our records when they're 100, 150. They killed them administratively. And we are going to pay people the wrong amount because of that, unless that's undone. Because mind you, even if we say, oh, that's somebody we presume dead and they weren't. No, they were dead at that. In those examples, those are people who were dead. We just input the wrong date. And it's going to make difference in the money that gets paid. If it happened in the same month, if they died earlier that month or they died later that month, it's not going to make a difference. But these people probably died years ago. And we are going to underpay them because of that. Because there is no reason to report their death, so no one did report their death. And when somebody does come years from now to report their death, Well, we already have a death date, and it was much later. And guess what? It's going to make a difference in how much you get from them. And so that's going to be a problem. Now, you may say, hey, the 18-year-old marrying the 58-year-old, maybe they were a gold digger. Maybe they were. Legally, it doesn't make a goddamn difference. The laws are there. That's rule of law. The laws are there. We don't care why. When we're going through that, we're not looking to judge people. I had someone who I've had many people over the years where I've had say, no, let's go with the truth. Don't try to sugarcoat it because it's gonna hurt you. You're gonna get paid less. For example, a sex worker saying, "Oh, I get gifts from boyfriends in the amount of blah blah blah." It was enough to make it so that she's not going to get paid, but it was very clear. No, you've been prostituting yourself, and that's earned income. And with the amount that you're getting, that's enough that you could still get SSI. So let's go with the earned income rather than saying you got gifts, because we're not here to judge. We're here to just follow the law as the law is written. That is what your civil servants do. And even if we may privately judge this or that, and with me, no, I didn't judge a sex worker for being a sex worker. If you go look at what things I've written before, I went through and I was complaining about FOSTA and SESTA for their attack on sex workers. But there are, definitely people I've had that I have personally judged, but that doesn't go into what they get paid, whether they get a reconsideration found the right way. It doesn't go into whether I waive an overpayment or find that they were overpaid. None of those, I can hate your guts. I'm still going to do what's right for you. If you're really being an ass, I might not bring up something that's going to help you and extend the time that we're spending together. But even then, most of the time, people are not being an ass enough that I'm going to skip over that. It's only when you're a real asshole. So, don't be an ass when you go into a federal office. People have done that. Oddly enough, I had one person thank me for how professional I was when I had them thrown out last time they were in there. And I didn't remember them one bit, but they remembered me. But that is, ultimately what we wanted to go over. I'm not sure. Well, we're 43 minutes, and this will be the short one today. So just keep in mind, there is no real threat of money being wasted on deceased people. DOGE went in, or at least instructed DUDEC to do this. It was unlawful. It falsified millions of federal records, giving an incorrect date of death, and it will affect some people. Most of these cases probably make no difference whatsoever, but it's those few thousand, maybe tens of thousands of cases that are going to be where people were harmed by doing this thing that was stupid, and which was brought up many times before by OIG, who said it would cost millions of dollars to fix it because that's how much it costs to do it the right way rather than doing it the wrong and illegal way. But that's what we've been seeing from this administration, doing everything the wrong and illegal way. It's not the rule of law, which is what we've traditionally been using for all our other failings. We use the rule of law. Everything is what is expected, rather Donald Trump likes to use law and order. He's always talked about law and order. Law and order is the exact opposite of the rule of law. It is arbitrary, it is capricious. What applies to one person does not apply to another. It has been classified as or typified, or should I say, when people are trying to point to rule of law, or sorry, law and order systems, they point to the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany. That is where that kind of law and order happened. Luckily, a lot of my classes that I've taken in my political theory program are joint law and political theory classes run by Dr. Brad Roth over at Wayne State University. Also, my advisor on my master's paper and will be on my dissertation when I get to it. And yeah, that is what we have. This was very much a law and order move to fix something that was not an actual problem. And they didn't touch a single case where anyone was being paid because they didn't want that to come back in news stories. Maybe somebody was thinking, oh, it won't hurt anybody, but it obviously, here, I'm an expert. I talked to another expert. That was noted by, in the email. This is a regional expert for, I'm not even sure if they just said that to people who were in the Chicago region, or if that's the whole Midwest region. I think that's what they renamed it. That is like 5 of the it's 4 of the damn old regions lumped together. I'm not sure which that was, but that is the person who was the specialist there, and they agreed with me. These are real problems where we violated law and we could potentially do a lot of harm to people. And that's what the Social Security Administration did. So get that news out. Since I seem to be the only one covering it, point them here to this video. Share this video far and wide. Get it somewhere. Thank you. And remember to think critically. Look at what I said. Does it make sense? Look at what Elon Musk has been saying. And after what we looked at, does what he said make any sense to you? Thank you.